India Brazil Chamber of Commerce Industry, let me just welcome you all on this and especially our distinguished speakers and participants for this very important webinar on India Brazil post COVID-19, new reality, opportunities and challenges. Today we have a set of very eminent panelists with us. Uh, His Excellency Ambassador Andre Lago is there from Ambassador of Brazil to India. Mr. Kovanthan, Charge d'Affaires Head Interim of India to Brazil is also there. And then we have Mr. Jay Shroff, who's a well-known, is a global leader in chemicals and agri imports from UPL. And we also have Mr. Karan Singh, Managing Director, ACG World, which is the largest capsule manufacturer of India. And we have Mr. Gulhan Mota, Head of Operations, Salary Fits. We also have Mr. Fernando Silva, CEO, Nunes Pharma, and Mr. Tushar Parikh, who's country head Brazil and BFSI head LATAM from one of the biggest software company of India, Tata Consultancy Services. So I think now I would like to invite our first panelist, first speaker from FICCI, Mr. Manish Singhal, who's Deputy Secretary General FICCI. So over to you, Manish ji.
Good evening, everyone in India. Good morning, everyone in Brazil. These are difficult times, but very interesting times that we all are talking, I think, about 14,000 kilometers away from each other, and we are talking still very well. So while I hope all of you and your families are doing well, I'll just set the tone for today's discussion by sharing a little bit of what's happening in India in the current situation. And of course, I'm talking of the economy only. As you can all see, the effect of this global pandemic has been across the globe. And the key effect, of course, has been the impact on the growth rates. So like for Brazil, it's also happening for India. We are relatively better today in terms of the mortality rates per million people, but we just are keeping our fingers crossed that it stays that way. Already in terms of growth projections, our growth, which was already not so good for us at 5% till this pandemic broke out, but now the estimates are that if things get back on track over the next month or so, then also the growth rate would not be more than 1.9%. Now, these are, of course, official figures which came about last week. Let's hope it stays that way and doesn't get worse. What India in particular stands out with regard to is that in this situation of a pandemic, India has, just a moment, I'm not sure whether my screen is showing. Yeah, in this situation of a pandemic, India has, compared to the West, one of the lowest expenditure per as a percentage of GDP. If you see the left side of the screen, it's one of the lowest, and it's in fact very low, if I can say that. At the same time, probably a little bit of advantage we have is that our population above 60 years, 65 years of age is small. India has a young population, so maybe that will help us to tide over this crisis slightly better. We did a survey, this is slightly dated survey about 2 weeks back, but in this survey, as expected, 53% of the Indian businesses indicate that the impact of the pandemic will on the business operation is already there. In fact, if you look at even the moderate impact ones, which might have shifted to high impact, there is almost 80% of our businesses have been affected. And in terms of global supply chains also, yes, impact is very high at about 63%. As of 2 weeks back, people were talking of 4 to 6 weeks of delays of supplies, especially from China. But then maybe if the China part eases out going forward as Chinese factories have started working, but then the global supply chains will anyways get impacted because both at the buying and the supplying end, there's a lot of hold up. This screen just gives a very broad picture of how various sectors of our economy have been impacted.
Yeah, Manishji, if you can just share your screen, the screen,
I
the
have
presentation slides are.
Just a moment. I have shared. Oh, I'm so sorry. Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible right now. So
Yes.
you can initially go to the.
I was just sharing very broadly as to the impact on our growth, which is likely to be less than 1.6%. And here, of course, this was the one I was mentioning, that our overall spend on healthcare is small. So that's a big challenge for a country like India. And our only saving grace probably is that our population above 65 is also very small, which is a very, very prone age for this. This was the result of the survey I was talking about, that probably as of today, 80% of the business is impacted very, very badly, and global supply chains are affected. Yeah, I was here when I was talking about tourism and aviation, as probably everywhere in the world. It's a $1.13 billion industry, which is totally at a standstill. Likewise, retail, which would have slightly eased from earlier this week when our government opened up some retail distribution to also ease the lockdown situation. But then that's a $30 billion industry where, of course, anywhere between 80 to 100% reduction in sales was reported at least 2 to 3 weeks back. More important on this slide is, I think, if we see the bottom, that when we are looking at coming out of the lockdown at whatever stage, then also the picture in India does not look to be very, very exciting. We are a large economy, so impact of anything like this is also very large. So obviously the industries which are based on essential spending, which is led by e-commerce, online healthcare, maybe entertainment and education. These industries would likely get back on rail the fastest, maybe in about 3 to 6 months, followed by food and FMCG and utility services, because again, these come more or less as essential services, only that some of the discretionary spending in these areas will get started. But the real industry, when it comes to chemicals, insurance, agriculture, metals, mining, beverages, apparel, and beauty products, which is very largely discretionary spend in terms of consumer spend, this is likely to take about a year to get back on rails. And of course, when it comes to hospitality and entertainment and tourism industry, likewise even auto and real estate, these are the ones which will reel under the COVID impact for about 12 to 24 months. So it's obviously not very good. This is just a snapshot of what our government has been doing in terms of easing a lot of services. Of course, a lot of ITES services supporting the essential services have started. Earlier this week, we've also started support services for agriculture in terms of maintenance, and support services for commercial sector, because commercial transportation is being allowed across the state borders in India. So the transport sector needs to be supported with spare parts and maintenance services, and likewise a lot of back-end services to support all these essential industries to work, including healthcare and pharma. These industries have also been allowed. At the same time, while the government has been very cautious of holding this pandemic back in India, they have announced a lot of fiscal incentives. So almost rupees 1.7 trillion, which is almost 1% of our GDP. A stimulus package has been announced by the government. At the same time, our Reserve Bank, the central bank, has reduced interest rates. They've increased liquidity in the system. And when they've increased liquidity, they've also mandated our financial institutions to distribute loans and money, not only among the large corporates, but even the small and medium enterprises. At the same time, the government is giving an extra push in making payments to all its suppliers, which were probably pending for some time. Idea is to get liquidity in the system because right now cash is the king. And of course, there's not been a very major fiscal package for the industry as yet, and especially some of the most troubled industries like tourism and airlines. But probably the government is working on it, and we are just hoping that something comes out soon. Besides this, there have been, just to mention, I would like to put here, they've been almost on a daily basis, there are recommendations being made by FICCI to the government on various aspects, which is obviously based on the industry input. And probably over 80% of our recommendations the government has heeded. In fact, our government has been very, very proactive in a very unprecedented way. And we are just hoping that we come out of this crisis.
Okay.
So that's what it is. I don't think I'll get into this slide. Just a moment. Yeah. So I don't think I'll get into this slide in more details. I've already spoken. We've given a lot of relaxation on all the definitions to the banking system, to the industry in terms of when a loan is going to be declared a non-performing loan, and various approvals have been extended by 3 months, various government permits and approvals. So to that extent, the government has been very flexible and proactive in making sure that industry is not left in the lurch because the government and the industry is not working fully. And these are, of course, for various sections of the society also. We've looked at the vulnerable, the differently abled, the tribals, and the lesser community in India. So the government has taken care of all aspects. With these, I'll just leave the discussions to some of the key sectoral inputs we'll get going forward. Thanks a lot and have a good day to you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I thank Mr. Manish and other FICCI members for this opportunity, and my wishes and prayers for all the participants and their families in this disturbed time of COVID-19. I broadly would like to cover the following aspects. Just a brief introduction about the external trade scenario of India and insight to the India-Brazil bilateral trade, followed by a special focus on the pharmaceutical and IT sector, and of course, some glimpses of the new developments in Indian economy, and the conclusion. See, as per the latest available data from the World WTO, the world trade is expected to fall between somewhere like 13 and 32% in 2020, as the COVID pandemic disrupts normal economic activity and life around the world. So India's export scenario, I've just taken the figure of the March 2020 and compared it with the same month for the last year. So it has exhibited a negative growth. So the decline in exports are mainly due to the ongoing global slowdown, which got aggravated due to the current COVID pandemic. The latter resulted in large-scale disruptions in supply chains and demand, resulting in cancellation of order. If you look at the commodities, except for iron ore, the rest all major commodities have registered negative growth in March 2020. While coming to India's import scenario, the same situation prevails here, which is like about 28% decline in India's import in March 2020 compared to March 19. Mainly the import, I would go with the oil imports, which has contracted over 15% compared to the last year. In this connection, I would like to mention that the global oil prices are data available from the World Bank. There are two problems which we face now. One, the problem in supply side and the problem in demand side. On the supply side impact, the shutdown of factories and the resultant delay in supply of goods could result in shortage of raw materials for companies largely importing from India. And on the demand side, the disruptive impact on demand was caused by this pandemic has created a large cash flow gaps for corporates. Tight financial conditions will make it difficult for them to fill this gap through market borrowing. Next 2 to 3 months will be crucial to watch because of the COVID related cases and the related lockdown measures. So the trade figures for Q2 would give us a better picture. Now I would go to this bilateral trade of India and Brazil. The same impact what was felt in the overall export is applicable to India-Brazil exports also. The Brazil's export to India, if you look at, that is like the imports of India from Brazil. The value of commodity exports is likely to suffer from the steep fall in price of goods, which account for a huge slice of Brazilian exports, mainly the low crude oil prices, the fear of global recession, and also to an extent some setbacks felt by the Indian gems and jewelry sector due to the lockdown measures. So this could be this would result in a kind of supply chain disruptions, which will be the determining factor for the top 2 Brazilian exports to India. With regard to oil, the global recession and the fallback in prices, and with regard to the gems and jewelry sector, I found the lockdown and the supply chain disruptions are the causes. While coming to Brazil's imports from India, the slow growth rate of the Brazilian economy and also the record low exchange rate of Brazilian real may lead to reduction in Brazil's imports. So this could lead to reduced internal demand for fuel, and this will weigh heavily on the imports of petroleum fuels from India. But on the other side, given this health crisis and the temporary zero import duties on a number of medical and pharmaceutical products given by the Brazilian side, the organic compounds and inorganic compounds and other medical products are expected to see increase in the percentage of the Brazilian imports from India. Let me go to the pharmaceutical sector. With nearly 30% of API coming from India and 12 Indian big pharmaceutical companies present in Brazil and 10 companies on the medical devices with a 10% generic drug share, India can do a lot in the pharmaceutical sector in the coming days. And with the global requirement of the hydroxychloroquine drug, which is expected to increase tremendously in the second and third quarters, the demand will be very high globally. And India over and above, if it could meet the domestic requirements and produce more of this drug, definitely this particular thing can help the export of pharmaceutical products from India to Brazil. Coming to the IT sector, with the limited interaction I had with the Indian companies in Brazil, I could see that the IT services for the aviation sector will be affected, and the banking services are also expected to get affected in the second quarter. And however, the good thing is that there will be no cancellation of the projects which they are already doing. There could be some delay in starting the new announcements, which is possible. And of course, the capex plan to preserve their cash and liquidity because of the credit crunch, it is quite possible in IT sector. However, the trend in IT sector could be dependent primarily based on the reaction in the primary and secondary sectors. The opportunity in this IT sector, which I could foresee, is that shortage of IT workforce in Brazil. Indian companies could work out a model with the Brazilian universities and find a way via media that how this IT workforce could be managed in a better way as an opportunity. Coming to India's position with regard to the economic situation now, even in the face of an looming economic recession worldwide, IMF in 2020 projects India to register the highest growth rate of 1.9% and a spectacular rebound at 7.9% for the fiscal year 2021. At a time when the economic activity is on pause, RBI took proactive measures such as announcing moratorium of 3 months on all term loans and working capital interest to ease the burden of repaying any kind of debt. In order to boost sectoral growth, a financial package of 1 lakh crore to the small and medium enterprises sector has been announced. This will certainly boost the sectoral growth through investments and loans. Businesses have been granted a moratorium of 90 days on their liabilities. Over 80 lakh MSMEs have promptly received the income tax refund, which are in excess of 5,200 crores. And I could foresee two major trends in the global trade. One could be protectionism and other could be diversification. protectionism in the sense that they would try to mainly depend on their self-reliance, which will be like increasing the production of essential items within the country. And diversification could be like moving away from traditional partners and exploring opportunities in various other countries. This could be a possibility. And other emerging trends could be like mobile commerce, which is like no-touch alternate payment options. So the alternate payment methods like Apple, PayPal, and Bitcoin could be increasingly popular. And post-COVID, we can also look at expanded opportunities using automation. And the demand for faster delivery of e-commerce services will be an important expectation given these circumstances. So I would suggest that India could be a better player in terms of its market size, and it's the only major economy to avoid contraction after China. So in these circumstances, Brazilian companies can positively look at India as an alternate option. And to conclude, I would say that the two factors will determine the strength of our recovery. One, how quickly we bring this pandemic under control. And two, the choices, the policy choices the government makes. If countries work together, we will see a faster recovery than each country goes it alone. Post-COVID global order, I would personally feel that India and Brazil should work towards a more broad-based cooperation model, which would include sharing of resources and expertise for common benefits. While India can be benefited by Brazil's energy, potential, and India can support Brazil in IT and pharmaceutical sector. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Charge Affairs, Mr. Kovantham. Thanks for giving us a roadmap in taking this relationship forward. Now, let me just acknowledge the presence of His Excellency Andre Lago, Ambassador of Brazil to India. Sir, we have been taking guidance from you. I think there is some technical glitch, so we will come back to you again. In the meantime, can I just go to Dr. Pedro Jr. From the Agricultural Research Corporation of Brazil. So, Mr. Pedro Jr.
Brazil is finalizing this summer harvest, and we don't have big problems. We have just occasional problems with milk, some fruits, and some vegetables. In the future, we have a big problem in our sugarcane production because the international price of petroleum, of oil, reduced the competitiveness of ethanol. And the social isolation reduced the consumption of ethanol in Brazil. We can change ethanol from ethanol to sugar, but just 40% of our mills produce ethanol and sugar. But we have some risks in the near future. The immediately main risk is the supply chain. We use fertilizers and pesticides, chemical from Europe, US, India, and China, and Russia. If depends the development of COVID in these countries, we will have a big problem in our next harvest. We have some problems in labor. Agriculture represents 30% of our labor. And we have two production. Some fruits, vegetables, meats are very crowded production. And COVID spread, it's a problem for this production. We have another production, for example, sugarcane and cotton requires specialized labor. If the that a problem it's for us. Another risk is the environment. Social isolation affect monitoring and expansion, especially in Amazon. And it is a good opportunity for people to do deforestation. Probably we will have, in the next summer, we will have a problem in Amazon. Another risk is credit. Banks and other institutions reduce loan and increase requirements because the uncertainty, COVID uncertainty, the risk, increase the risk. And finally, we have some problems with the opportunity. People run to buy food, the price increase, and the farmer is the weakest side in this chain. And if we don't protect the farmer, we will have a problem in the near future. I think from the relationship between Brazil and India, supply of pesticides, it's a good opportunity for the relationship between Brazil and India. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Pedro. So, yeah, may I now invite Mr. Jay Shroff? Mr. Jay Shroff, yeah, he's the well-recognized global leader in chemicals and agri input. So, over to you, Mr. Shroff.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to meet everybody, Your Excellencies. UPL has been very active investor in Brazil. We have been integral part of the Brazil agriculture system for the last more than 10 years, and we have seen the benefit and grown our business together with the Brazilian agriculture business. Today, UPL is the in the top 5, top 4 companies in inputs and products for Brazilian farmers. We have seen the efficiency and the productivity of Brazilian agriculture and understand that it is really a big strategic advantage. Long term, in the future, post this crisis, there are a lot of opportunities for increasing trade between India and Brazil. And we are very optimistic that this relationship can be consolidated and strengthened going forward. Today, Brazilian agriculture is completely dependent on its relationship and purchasing of goods or export of its agriculture produce to China. And this has to change. India is also a 1.3 billion people market and is a large importer of edible oil. Particularly now with the restriction on palm oil, I think short term there is an opportunity of exporting more soybean oil into India. We have suggested a number of strategies for Brazilian agriculture companies, and UPL is willing to even support some of these projects, such as creating a large reserve of edible oil stored in a free zone in India and then supplied domestically or into the region. Brazil needs to reduce its dependence on China, and India can be a great alternative. We have started developing the pulses market in the last 4 years. That's something which UPL has been driving, and the pulses market we have been able to break through in that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, few thousand tons of pulses have been imported and being distributed to Indian consumers. I think these sort of initiatives can really help growing the bilateral relationship. To increase the bilateral relationship, not only in agriculture but also pharmaceuticals, we need to have a fast-track approval system. India is one of the strong chemical manufacturers, and we can use that platform to export more agrochemicals. Today, almost 80 or 90% of the agrochemicals are imported from China. The dependence and the risk of a crisis like this can have a huge impact on Brazilian farmers. We believe that the government should fast track alternative suppliers such as India to supply agrochemicals. Indian government also should help Brazilian agriculture to get a bigger share. This will help us to control inflation and also crises when the GDP again starts to grow. Assuming Indian GDP, right now it looks difficult, but if the Indian GDP over the next 5 years doubles, or then the food availability will be a challenge, and Brazil can really help us to control food price inflation. Pharmaceuticals is another area where I think the Brazilian government should help fast-track Indian pharmaceutical companies to get access to the Brazilian market. There are certain short-term challenges. There are, as Dr. Pedro very rightly mentioned, fruits and vegetable market and milk, sugar industry are going through stresses because of the current crisis. Also, when we are exporting goods, commodities, freights, the uncertainty in freights and container availability is also causing some problem on to be able to continually export in the current period. While I believe a lot of these crises will get addressed and sorted out, and people will get more accustomed to the new reality in the post-COVID era, where I think all industries, including agriculture, pharmaceuticals, governments, ports, all these organizations and institutions will have a new reality, and they will adjust to a new form of working. While this may take 3 to 6 months, we can see a lot of innovation happening, and these innovations will really help us to be back and productive again. The challenges being faced in the short term and long term can be differentiated, and we can address some of the long term challenges which are likely to face Brazilian agriculture. I believe that diversity of Brazilian agriculture is very, very important. Today, the dependence on Brazilian agriculture on soybean, corn, and sugarcane and cotton is very, very high. Market like India, which is such a diversified market, if Brazilian farmers can design their strategy to cater to Indian market, I believe that this will give them a lot of resilience when soybean, corn, cotton prices crash. They would be able to have an alternative strategy, and I believe that India would be a good target market for Brazilian agriculture. That's mostly what I had to say. I think that having a working group between both the countries to fast track trade relationships and trade priorities will really help us to come out of this stronger and increase trade going forward. That's all I had to say, and thank you very much for having me here.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Shroff. I think it's really great, and I think your suggestion of creating a working group, we will with IBCC, we will try to create and work with the policymakers. So let me just now see if Ambassador Andre Lago is there, so we can have His Excellency Ambassador Andre Lago. Is Ambassador there? Okay. So I think this is Mr. Fernando
No,
Silva,
Gajendra,
right?
he's not here.
Okay. So no issues. Then I think let's welcome Mr. Fernando Silva, CEO Nunes Pharma. So yeah, over to you, Mr. Silva. And sorry for I think we are all learning our ways, new ways of communicating. So there are some technical glitches, but yeah, over to you, Mr. Fernando.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Can you hear me? Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Very loud and clear.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Leonardo, for invitation and in this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning, good evening, everyone. I'm Fernando, partner and CEO of Nunes Pharma, based in Curitiba, Brazil, and for more than 10 years working to integrate the Brazilian pharma market with the Indian producers. Before giving the words to Ms. Pamela, who is speak about the regulatory review and news here in Brazil, I want to take advantage of this short time to say my opinion, my opinion about post-COVID-19 vision the day after, okay? Here in Brazil, this day, the day after, began to be built with the change of the Minister of Health and the entry yes, the day after, here in Brazil, began to be built with the change of the Minister of Health last week and the entry, the new Minister of Health, Mr. Nelson Taik. Yesterday, in his first interviews, the new Minister of Health, he emphasized that he will consider a continental country like Brazil and its diversities, with particular solution, work with particular solution for each state and municipality and its COVID-19 stage. There will no longer be a single solution for the whole country. The new Minister of Health will also encourage off-label treatment of all the medicines, such as hydroxychloroquine, associated with zinc and azithromycin, and already in early stage of this disease. Several surveys are on this path. Here, I would like to talk additional comment. Nunes Pharma, which has zinc sulfate in our portfolio, and our zinc sulfate is manufactured by the Indian company Medicament Biotech, Mr. Madan, Mr. Rahul, and produce for us. And we have now stocks of zinc sulfate. And our company will donate all its current stock to the Brazilian Public Health System hospitals, SUS, and also for research of label use. Is proof the integration Brazil and India is good for both countries, for both peoples, levels in both countries. Before giving to Ms. Pamela, I would like to express my thanks to Indian Brazil Chamber of Commerce in the person of its president, Mr. Leonardo Ananda, and a special thanks to the Brazilian Embassy in India in the person of Mr. André Lago, who has effectively helped us that the shipments of medicines continue to flow, even with the complication of the total or partial closure of activities in ports. Pamela, please. Thanks. Okay, Pamela? Please, Pamela, here. Okay.
So Mr. Fernando has highlighted some important challenges and opportunities, and I would like to add some extra information on this. So first, about the product shortage that Mr. Manish already shared with us in the beginning of this day presentation. It's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity to narrow the relations with the suppliers. So when the lockdown is finished, it's over, we can guarantee the recovery of production and shipments as soon as possible, and with that, the maintenance of the revenue of companies in Brazil and in India. Since the biggest challenge in pandemic is the fight against the pandemic itself, one big opportunity for pharma industry is innovation. There's a lot of research and service being done in Brazil and in the entire world. We believe that is a good opportunity for Brazil and India to cooperate together and make better research and have better results on that. So the exchange of information and service is a good opportunity now. Focusing more in Anvisa, in my area of expertise, Anvisa recently published a new normative about the food manufacturing practice certificates. So now, because of the lockdown and because of the pandemic, Anvisa, instead of going on site to inspect the pharma industries, they open an opportunity to use the other reports issued by foreign health authorities. Meaning that, for example, if a company already has a certificate issued by a member of PICS, they can use that report and use this issue the certificate of Anvisa in Brazil. So the company will receive a GMP Anvisa certificate based in another report. For medicines, the guide is the PICS. So, for example, if you have a US FDA GMP certificate, a company can share that certificate with Anvisa and then receive its own Brazilian certificate as well. Also, in case we don't have that, Anvisa can also do a video conference or teleconference or use any other electronic means to inspect the company without being physically there in the site. This opportunity is available only for pre-requested certifications, meaning companies that request the GMP certificate before the pandemic, and also for new certificates that has some relation with the COVID-19. We believe that it's opportunity to Anvisa also in the future maintain that possibility. It will save money and time for the government, for the industry, and for the importers. Since they are using the same guideline, there's no point of being double inspections. There's a plenty of challenges and opportunities to all the companies. We briefly talked about them. Many more could have been described, but each and every company has to do its own exercise based on their weakness and strength and their situation, right? I would like to take the opportunity to share with you my thoughts about this moment we are facing, and I will be pleased to talk more about it and answer any question in the question and answer section. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Fernando, and thank you, Pamela. Now, I think let me just try one more time for His Excellency Andre Lago. I believe if we can get him, if we can
you hear
get him
me?
connected. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
That's an enormous progress. Wonderful. Thank you. How are you?
Thanks.
I'm very glad to participate. I was listening to all of you, and I'm going to be brief because you have entered. You have already mentioned the most important aspects, but I would like to first of all thank you for inviting me to join. Thank Fernando Silva for the very kind words. We're very happy to defend the pharma industry here because India and Brazil are partners in pharma. It's a very, very important sector, and this was highlighted by Coventan. And we are delighted that we can strengthen this friendship between us. I want to thank my friend Manish too for his words. As usual, he's the great expert on our bilateral relations, and he's a realist. And it's always good to hear you. But anyway, let me get to what I believe we have to stress in this very, very strange context. Is that we have to accept that the role of India and Brazil in the world will change after this pandemic. The place of India and Brazil in the world will change after this pandemic. But the space we're going to conquer depends on us, because nobody's going to help us or support us, because this is such an enormous crisis that we are going to see a very strong effort from everybody to take the opportunities and for themselves. So first of all, I think that we must be very strong in our countries to know what we can do, how we can do it, and to really have the strong thinking about that. But what is the subject today? The subject today is how we can do it together. And there are many, many elements that are helping us to do it together. First, as you all know, we strengthened our strategic partnership in January through our two leaders. And although the strategic partnership, if you read, is about a normal world, and we're going to enter into a not normal world in this moment, I think that we have to make this strategic partnership work. And I'm very happy that our leaders are talking, our foreign ministers are talking, many other authorities are talking, because this is going to be a great opportunity for our two countries. Our two countries have to be part of the solution of this new balance that is going to be fought after this crisis goes on. And so I am very, very convinced that this crisis will oblige us to be even more partners. because our two countries, and we've been saying that for a long time, have nothing. There's nothing good that happened to Brazil that is not good for India, and vice versa. There's nothing good for India that is not good for Brazil. And we have to sit together, companies, government, and also think tanks, and also academia and science. And we have to get together, because this is a great opportunity for our two countries to find a new, better place in the world and a new role in this world that is open. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, His Excellency. Your words are always encouraging for all of us, and also giving your vision on how to take this relationship forward. I would just like to apologize once again for all the technical glitches that you had by not connecting you earlier. So thanks, Excellency, once again. Now, may I move to, so let me just invite Mr. Muta of Salary Fits.
Hello, good evening. I'm being audible now.
Yeah, you are audible, so you may start.
Thank you. Good evening from India, and good morning to my dear friends in Brazil. Namaste. First of all, I would like to thank you, India-Brazil Chamber of Commerce and FICI, for inviting Salary Fits to be part of this webinar about the, I believe, these three main industry sectors on India-Brazil relationship. I will try to be short on the next 5 minutes, talking a little bit about my sector here, information technology. So first, we can say that during this new era, technology has been many different fronts of our daily activity and basic needs. Like we can even bring the example of this webinar happening right now, and other technology solutions connecting people, making this period a little bit easier during this moment of lockdown and societal distancing. And of course, we should think about this adoption as a continuously work for companies looking to innovate and growing scalable. We have been some government relaxation here in India in some regulation points, and it's not only in the IT industry, but many other ones, pushing companies to reinvent their production chain and business. As case, for example, of 3D printers that used to work with different products before, now dedicated its production to medical segment. As another good example that I can give here in India would be about Aroja Setu app, a mobile application developed by government of India to connect essential health services with people. This is now the world's fast downloaded app with more than 50 million users in 2 weeks and reaching already almost 100 million people. The app is available in 11 different languages. But of course, even reaching almost 100 million people, we think that we have in India 1.3 billion. So we still a huge gap to reach and bring this technology for all the other citizens. I believe that technology companies are in a position to fight and fly over the crisis. We have been watching and following different tech companies, not only surfing on the opportunity, but more than that, being really helpful as an alternative to avoid the virus spreading. Companies such as e-commerce and marketplace with groceries and other daily needs, health tech companies with teleconsultation and fast diagnostic solutions, HR tech companies with different employee support and other tools for managing teamwork. And in our case, Salary Fits, the fintech being crucial as a backbone for the whole environment. For example, we're providing contactless payments, moving all this digital scenario and supporting millions of families with your basic financial needs. I can even highlight the case of PhonePe here in India. PhonePe is an e-wallet similar such as Paytm or Mobikwik that came in a partnership with Bajaj Alliance, providing a corona insurance product at 156 rupees only. It's around, for our Brazilian friends, around $2 that covers you for 1 year if you get hospitalized in a private hospital due to the coronavirus. Fintech as a backbone for the financial industry are representing a very important piece in this fight against COVID-19. With this new scenario, especially here in India, with a huge number of unbanked citizens neglected by the traditional financial system, fintechs are being sometimes the only option when they can at least download e-wallet to manage their finance. But of course, you can do much more with technology. It's quite hard to face and deal with e-wallet if you don't have money to top up it. Further, talking about government rules here, we see India keen to move faster on digital solutions such as e-signature and the video KYC. KYC, it's know your customer, so it's mandatory by RBI, Reserve Bank of India, to keep the register of your clients when you're applying for such of financial products. So understand of some challenge of NBFCs, non-banking financial companies, and other fintech. As I said, governments moving forward on few regulations that are crucial for many of these companies. The regulations such as the KYC that has been in discussion at the Supreme Court for years to allow this process with Federação support. Even with certain doubts on these regulations, we are seeing considerable growth in companies adopting video KYC solutions. This initiative will drastically reduce operational costs if we consider that the normal KYC costs on average around 100 rupees, while the digital one can be around 15 rupees only. And adding on that, technology such as for companies, we can provide a totally digital way to acquiring new clients and managing their financial needs. A channel that can reduce more than 7% of operational costs. So SolarFit has been supporting family heads to have access to fair financial and sustainable products while empowering these individuals through their salaries. And we should see that not only during this lockdown moment, but it's also important to predict that social as a common practice for the next couple of months, our platform can help connecting employees in a digital way with different financial and service providers. It will reduce the human interaction, corporate levels, also with the banks and its employees in case if you're applying for loans, for example, that needs the HR requesting the last 3 pay slips or letter from your companies that have been working in this company for such a time. Combining that with other technologies, we can reduce the timeline of a loan process from 15-20 days here in India to a couple of hours. And in this crisis, who is needing money cannot even do longer than 3 to 5 days. And even inside the family, it's true where someone maybe lost their job or suddenly see your income being cut in 20-50%, as you're seeing happening in Brazil as well. SolarFit can be a very supportive option for these families. Basically, the platform that integrates financial institutions with the payroll information of the companies, providing access to a new risk assessment tool, as well the possibility of deducting the installments, the payments directly from one's salary, benefiting providers, employers, and employees. I believe that's all. Thank you very much. I hope I brought a picture of part of the IT sector here in India, and I'm totally available in case of any question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Guilherme Mota. I think you gave a good perspective on collaboration or cooperation opportunities in IT and the technology sector. So now we will move to Mr. Tushar Parekh, I think country head Brazil and BFSI head LATAM of TCS India. So over to you, Mr. Tushar Parekh.
Good evening and good morning to all of you. I am Tushar Parekh, country head of Tata Consultancy Services and BFSI LATAM head for TCS. Tata Consultancy Service is the top 3 global technology services and consultancy companies. TCS is also part of Tata Group, which is a leading multinational based out of India. It is a real honor to be here, and thank you to FICCI and Indian Brazil Chamber for the opportunity to talk to all of you. The past few weeks has put all of us in an unfamiliar territory. It's like a black swan event. The course of COVID-19 continues to be uncertain and affecting fundamentals of the world around us. And I agree with some of our colleagues who have covered the points on technology, agriculture, and also overall how India-Brazil economies will have to work together. What we see in TCS, like this entire black swan event, according to me, it's like a timeline and a reaction in 3 different phases. One is the first phase when we got to know this was a shock and reorganization. Second was realignment on what is happening around us, and transition to the new world, which is new normal. So TCS, we are actively contributing to tackle this global COVID situation, supporting and ensuring health and the well-being of our employees and communities where we operate, and supporting our customers to maintain their critical business functions. It's quite early to assess the impact of COVID-19 on the trade between India and Brazil due to current pandemic stage. But Mr. Kovantan commented, Mr. Manish commented, I agree, based on the IDC report also, there will be an impact in different segments. Travel and hospitality will have major impact, unlike to media and telecommunication industry. And analysts like IDC feel that information technology will have a V-shaped recovery, which will be like 12 to 18 months to recover back, because information technology is mostly impacting because of the business getting impact. But in information technology side, what we see that in 12 to 18 months, the things will recover back. And if I see very optimistically, this webinar is completely being driven technology based. So I think there will be a lot of opportunities in IT sector. And I want to comment some of this which might help our stakeholders in this call, like more contactless interfaces and interaction might happen. Monitoring of IoT and big data will come into picture. Artificial intelligence enabled drug development will happen. Just to give example that TCS scientists using TCS patent AI technology and framework in collaboration with Council for Scientific and Industrial Research laboratories, 31 promising chemical components which should be synthesized and tested to find the potential drug. So TCS is contributing in AI-based drug development. In terms of telemedicine and online shopping mode, for sure this COVID situation will do more transformation, more adaptation of this telemedicine, online education, online shopping. And for sure there will be increase, our studies say there will be increased reliance on robots, which will help to automate overall and do transformation. Between India and Brazil, I see more synergies on information technology work for our customers. And recently, our global CEO also commented that SBWS is a model which we implemented internally, which is secure borderless workspace, where we provide secure networks to our employees to work remotely. And this work remotely to our customer networks using secure networks that will help work from home or work remotely. And we see that no single location will have more than 25% of located team sitting in one single location. It will be co-location. So Mr. Govindan mentioned, and also in some of the colleagues I heard about the scarcity and the resource to be utilized. So India, Brazil can leverage the talents available between both the countries to bring information technology. Also, I see financial inclusion as one of the good opportunity for Brazil as well, where India using Jan Dhan Yojana from government initiatives, it has created a lot of rigor in new services and benefits for citizens. So I think that Brazil can adopt that. And also the mindset, we all are in new normal. So this new normal is, we say, location independent agile, that all the companies, all the business are thinking how to be independent of location, being a concept of agile and location independent agile. And online education is also becoming very key nowadays, where TCS as a platform of ION, digital classroom, which we are doing some pilots in Brazil to help universities and colleges to see how this platform can help in digital learnings for Brazilians. And as per our business 4.0 framework, with this new normal, we are focusing on resilience, purpose driven, and adaptability. That is the way. And little bit not being pessimistic, but considering optimistic scenario, I feel that we will be able to have a lot of opportunities in technology, because technology will be core of all the business, and all the business models will change because of the new normal. And I would like to conclude last from my side. Recently, our chairman has quoted, which I want to just conclude by summarizing that, which I completely agree and believe and respect that, which is Tata Group has faced adversity in the past, from world wars to famine and yes, pandemics, and emerged stronger and more prepared for the next challenge. And I don't see this time is different. This time is more or less similar. And we all working together, India, Brazil, different sectors, different companies, will be able to move out of this situation. Thank you very much. Stay safe, and I look forward to continue associated with the group. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tushar Parekh. I think we were all inspired by Mr. Ratan Tata's quote as well on looking ahead and don't be too perturbed by these. Obviously, it's a huge challenge, but I think there is a light in the end of the tunnel. So we all look forward to that. Thanks, Mr. Parekh.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. And now I think let me go back to...
So namaskar, bom dia. Good morning to all the Brazilians here, and good afternoon to all the Indians in this virtual Zoom. First, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Leonardo Ananda Gomes. I'm one of the founders of India Brazil Chamber of Commerce, and I have been president of this institution for the past 10 years. And 3 years ago, I had the immense honor of being invited by the Indian government to become Honorary Consul General of India in the state of Rio de Janeiro. But the most important thing, I'm a Brazilian in love with India since 1981, almost 40 years now. And now, of course, I would like to make some very special thanks, because what I learned most important in these 16 years working for the growth of the India-Brazil relationship was that we can only make a difference in this relationship if we work together with good partners and if we have the support of the right people and institution. So my special thanks first for His Excellency Ambassador of Brazil in India, André Correia do Lago. He's a good friend. He's doing a fantastic job at the embassy in New Delhi. Another very good friend, Chargé d'Affaires from the Embassy of India in Brazil, Mr. Coventan. He's a very young diplomat, but he's doing a great job here in Brazil, promoting India. and helping and assisting and supporting all the Indian community here in Brazil. And of course, a special thanks to our very good partner, Fiki, Manish Singhal, he's an old friend, Gajendra and his team, Manish, Vitran, thank you very much to help us to organize this web seminar today. We chose these three sectors to be the focus of our web seminar today: IT, agribusiness, and pharma, because we believe that we will be the protagonists of a closer relationship between India and Brazil during this delicate and peculiar moment caused by COVID-19. I have been learning a lot about the India-Brazil relationship, and I would just like to point out that, in my humble opinion, we are living the best moment of this bilateral relationship. And despite of many challenges of this moment, many opportunities will arise, and the friendship between these two nations will become even stronger in the coming years. To end my brief participation in this webinar, and to illustrate the important moment of this relationship, I would like to quote small parts of the letter that was sent by the President of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, to the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on 60th of April 2020. In the beginning of the letter, Brazil is extremely happy with the increasing strength of our bonds of friendship with India. In the middle of the letter, Brazil and India enjoy a long and friendly relation of great importance to both nations, sharing many similarities and complementarities. And in the end of the letter, the best part, in my opinion, just as Lord Hanuman brought the holy medicine from the Himalayas to save the life of Lord Rama's brother Lakshmana, India and Brazil will overcome this global crisis by enjoying first and sharing blessings for the sake of our people. So I would like to give a special thanks to the speakers as well. In the pharma sector, my dear friend Fernando Silva, Director of Nunes Pharma, alongside with Mrs. Pamela, Manager of Nunes Pharma as well. Fernando is a member of our advisory board. Mr. Karan Singh was not able to connect, but he's a very good friend, member of our advisory board, Director of ACG, one of the biggest Indian investors in the pharma sector in Brazil. I hope to have him in our next webinar. And Mr. Guilherme Mota, my old friend, he used to be our trainee here at the chamber, and now he's a head of operations of salary feeds in India. And Mr. Tushar Parikh, another member of our advisory board, a very good friend, country head Brazil of TCS. And in the agriculture sector, we have a very special speech of Mr. Jai Shroff, Global CEO of UPL, one of the biggest investors, Indian investors in Brazil. I had the opportunity to meet him in Brasilia. He's a nice guy, very humble guy, and he's in love with the India-Brazil relationship, and he's helping a lot to increase this relationship. That's it. Thank you very much, and I hope you had a very good morning here in Brazil or an afternoon in India with a lot of learning and inspiration. Be safe. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
We have picked up some questions which have been posted here. So let me just begin the first question. I think this is, I hope Mr. Manish Singhal is still there. So this question is, according to a research published by IMF, India will be one of the 2 countries to present a positive economic index, that is 1.9% after the pandemic. Since FICCI represents many chambers of commerce from India in multi-sectoral way, what factors and sectors do you believe they will contribute to reach this positive mark? So Manishji, this is for you.
Okay, can you all hear me?
They can,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so well, my simple response to this is that in my slide, if one noticed, I still mentioned that fortunately India has a very strong services sector. Almost 60% of our GDP is on services, while manufacturing is also there, and agriculture. So to that extent, in terms of resources, we are very rich, including mining resources. So for India to have this positive growth rate of even, let's say, post-COVID, even 1% or 1.5% may not be such a big challenge, because we will not be too dependent on how other economies around us, come out of this situation. And yes, there is a lot of emphasis on manufacturing growing from here. Also because we see that slowly India is getting integrated as part of global value chains. So that will be a big opportunity going forward, as we expect that some of the investments which have got held up in the past would now probably start flowing in once we all are back on track. I hope I've been able to answer the question.
Thank you, Manishji. Thank you for giving this perspective. Now there is one question. I think this Ambassador Lago, if Excellency you are there, how can India and Brazil cooperate? In the context of official visit of the presidency of during the Republic Day in January this year, the Brazilian government announced its mention to strengthen trade relations between India and Brazil, especially for ethanol. What are the perspective and opportunities between countries regarding this product? I think you have already touched upon this, but you may please elaborate.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you for the question. Well, this is an area in which not only we signed a series of agreements, but since the president's visit, we already had 3 events here in Delhi and in India in general regarding this strengthening of our bilateral relation in ethanol. So this is something that is truly going ahead. On the other side, as Manish was mentioning, between the many challenges that we're going to have in front of us, one is energy, with the very low prices of oil at the moment, how this is going to evolve. So what we are going to see is a strengthening of the internal logic for both India and Brazil to invest more in ethanol. And I believe there is a logic, but there is also an enormous challenge because of prices. So I think it's a bit early for us to see what is going to happen in this area. But there is no doubt that what we are going to face after this COVID crisis is probably countries looking for solutions that they control, that they can, that they know that they can have some control of the whole process. The great thing about ethanol between our 2 countries is that it fits into the logic that we are the 2 largest producers of sugar, and this is a fact, and this is something that opens many doors, and I believe that we may have some variation because of this crisis, but the truth is that this is an area that will continue to be very strong.
Yeah, thank you, Excellency. Thank you for giving us the details of the cooperation in this particular sector between India and Brazil. Now we have a question on technology. So since we have representatives from TCS and Salary, so it's basically addressed to them. How can India and Brazil cooperate in technology sector to encourage the growth of innovation in Brazil? how can one country learn from other in order to advance its modernization process? So I think maybe first we can have response from Tushar, and then maybe we can move on to Mr. Guimota.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, please.
Yeah, so especially India and Brazil, I think it is very important, like SBWS, I was mentioning secure borderless workspace. What it means, no single location can have 25-30% team working in a single location. So considering demand in Brazil and India, both the companies working together, helping on technology and sharing global practices between India and Brazil will really change the location independent agile way of working, which will bring more agile way of collaborating between India and Brazil. And also, as per the Brascom data, Brascom, for people to know, is similar to NASCOM in India. That data also shows that there's always shortage of new technologies as source in the market. So it would be a good opportunity for India, Brazil to collaborate, provide the resource pool together, collaborative working, and creating these synergies of location independent agile. And I'm sure, as I mentioned, that 12 to 18 months, there will be a lot of recovery, and every business will change in new normal, and every business has to have technology as their core. So it is very important for all the business to think and leverage India-Brazil partnership to deliver well.
Yeah, if I may add a few other points. Thank you, Tushar, and greetings from India. Hope everything is well with you in Brazil. Particularly talking about the fintech sector, where our company is like working here in India. I believe that there are a lot of opportunities between Indian and Brazilian companies. Brazil is pretty strong on the financial sector. The financial market in Brazil is not easy. And with the huge need of financial inclusion happening right now in India, of course, we can support a lot with financial technology over here in India. And also, India is pretty well known as a IT hub, IT development center. Many of the largest IT companies in the world are based here in India. We have good quality of workforce, have good pricing as well. That's like pretty essential here for Indian market. And not only on the fintech, I had the pleasure on January this year as part of the India-Brazil Chamber of Commerce business delegation that was joining our president, Jair Bolsonaro. I went to a visit to UPL, where we had another speaking during the event, and I was also seeing a lot of technologies applied on the agribusiness sector. So there are a lot of synergies between both countries that we have to explore. And yes, it's just agreeing with Mr. Leonardo Ananda, we are on the path now to boost this relationship between both countries.
There's one more question on technology. Tushar, you have already touched upon this in your presentation, but just for this one is what is the growth and opportunity in artificial intelligence between our two countries after COVID-19?
See, it is very difficult to predict the percentage, but for sure there will be acceleration on digital platforms in all the industries. And having said that, everybody, being it big data or artificial intelligence, or we say machine first delivery model, which is for automation, will start with more acceleration piece. I can tell that in next 12 to 18 months, the opportunities on artificial intelligence will be higher than what we predicted 1 year back in 2020.
I would just like to thank everyone, especially IBCC and all our distinguished speakers for this great interaction. Every new thing has its challenges. So we also had our challenges in terms of some issues in connecting. but it was indeed a very enriching experience for all of us here. So I would like to thank all our speakers, all our distinguished speakers, for taking their time off, and also our participants. Now I think there have been some demands of presentations by different participants. So I would like to just, maybe they can just send us a mail to us, and we will share the presentations with them, obviously with the permission of our speakers. So thank you everyone, and thank you for being with us.